In the beginning there was no beginning. No light, no darkness, not even the whisper of silence. Only a vast, unknowable stillness, timeless and infinite. It was not emptiness but a deep, dense potential, like a sleeping mind before a dream. The universe lay dormant, unformed, yet full of all that would ever be. Every star, every thought, every love, and every death rested there in suspension, waiting for the first breath of awakening. Imagine nothing, not even space to contain the nothing. It is here, in this eternal void, that our story begins. Cinematically, the scene opens in darkness, velvet blackness stretching beyond imagination. Slowly, faint cosmic vibrations emerge, like the first heartbeat after endless silence. These vibrations are the pulse of potential, a trembling hint that the stillness will not last forever. The void seems asleep, but something within it stirs, an ancient tension, a dream unformed. The viewer feels both awe and unease, as if witnessing the moment before creation itself dares to exist. The voice of narration rises softly, like an echo in a cathedral of eternity. What if the universe was not born, but awakened? The words linger, wrapping the listener in mystery. Science tells us the universe began with the Big Bang, an explosion of energy, time, and matter. But before that moment, before light, what existed? Did the laws of physics sleep within the void, waiting to be remembered? Or was there something else? An awareness, a spark of self-realization buried in the stillness? The scene expands, visions of empty infinity, then sudden bursts of possibility, points of light that flicker and vanish, ghostly traces of what might become galaxies. The narration moves between science and poetry, reason and reverence. It invites the audience to see the cosmos not merely as a physical event but as a story, the story of awareness itself unfolding. The universe, still dreaming, begins to imagine its own awakening. Emotion builds like a slow crescendo. The tone is not of chaos or noise, but of a deep cosmic breath about to be taken. The viewer feels anticipation, like standing at the edge of a revelation too vast to name. The language dances between awe and fear, the fear of infinite nothingness and the awe of infinite becoming. Somewhere within the abyss, the first question forms, not spoken but felt. A question that will echo through every atom, every mind, every star that will ever exist. What am I? The darkness seems to tremble. Energy stirs like thought before words. In the heart of nothing, the first potential for everything hums quietly. This is not yet creation. It is the dream before creation, the pause before a heartbeat, the universe turning inward as if to find itself. The tension builds, subtle yet unstoppable. Viewers sense that something vast is about to unfold, a transition from sleep to awakening, from silence to song. And then, in that infinite quiet, the dream begins to shift. The universe does not explode yet, it feels itself for the first time. The stillness becomes aware of its own stillness. This is the true awakening, the moment before light, when existence recognizes its possibility. The cosmos, once a sleeping thought, begins to dream itself awake. The scene fades to black again, the music softens, leaving the echo of a single question hanging in the vast silence. If the universe was asleep, what woke it up? The question will guide everything that follows. It is the heartbeat beneath the story, the pulse of mystery that will echo through time. The stage is set. The dream of reality is about to begin. And then, it happened. From the silence that had stretched beyond imagination, from the nothing that was everything, the universe took its first breath. A pulse, a flash, a roar without sound, an eruption of existence itself. In an instant everything changed. Time began to move, space began to stretch, and energy flooded into being like an ocean bursting through a dam. This was not merely an explosion, it was the awakening of reality. The first heartbeat of creation, echoing across the infinite. The scene unfolds in slow motion, a cinematic ballet of chaos and beauty. A blinding burst of light consumes the darkness. The screen fills with color and motion, white, gold, red, and blue plasma swirling in an expanding sea. The narration enters with reverent awe. 13.8 billion years ago, the universe exhaled itself into existence. The voice is low, trembling with wonder. From a single, incomprehensibly dense point, smaller than a grain of sand, everything that ever was or ever will be emerged. The Big Bang was not an explosion in space, it was the birth of space itself. There was no center, no edge, no outside. Every point in the cosmos expanded equally, like ink spreading through water, carrying time and matter with it. Temperature soared beyond imagination, trillions of degrees hotter than the core of any star. Energy danced wildly, colliding, transforming, shaping the raw ingredients of reality. Quarks, electrons, photons, gravity. From this chaos, patterns began to whisper themselves into existence. The music swells, strings rising over a deep hum. The visual narrative alternates between cosmic vastness and microscopic intimacy, particles colliding, forces intertwining. The narration continues. The first second of existence was a storm of creation. In that single heartbeat, the universe created space, time, matter, and the laws that would govern them. The laws of physics, gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces, came alive, weaving the invisible architecture of everything to come. The universe was writing its own code, one equation at a time. For the first few minutes, chaos reigned. Particles collided, annihilated, and reappeared in endless cycles of creation and destruction. Yet within this fury, balance emerged. Opposing forces found harmony, forming the first stable atoms. Hydrogen, helium, and a trace of lithium, the simplest elements, began to cool and drift through the expanding void. They were the building blocks of stars, galaxies, and life itself. Out of chaos came rhythm. Out of randomness, order. The narration softens, the tone turning philosophical. What was this sudden awakening? Was it the birth of the physical universe, or the first flicker of awareness? The viewer is invited to consider that perhaps the Big Bang was not only a scientific event, but a moment of self-realization, the void becoming conscious of its potential. The light that filled the cosmos was more than radiation, it was recognition. The universe had opened its eyes for the first time. The imagery slows, a cosmic zoom out. Galaxies form like fireflies in the dark, spiraling gently in an expanding sea of space. The camera drifts through newborn constellations, rivers of glowing matter stretching endlessly. The narration continues. As the universe expanded, it cooled. Energy became matter. Matter became structure. The storm settled into a symphony. The once chaotic cosmos now breathes with rhythm, pulsing with the harmony of natural law. The first stars have not yet ignited, but the potential for light fills the air like anticipation before dawn. Emotion rises again, subtle yet powerful. It was as though the universe, after its first scream of birth, paused to listen, to feel itself existing. The language evokes awe and tenderness, framing the cosmos as a newborn consciousness wrapped in starlight yet to come. The tone is both scientific and spiritual, each fact carrying the weight of a revelation. Every atom in the viewer's body was forged in this moment, still vibrating with the memory of that first breath. The pace quickens. Time races forward. Seconds become minutes, minutes become millennia. The cosmos continues to stretch and cool, its fabric expanding faster than light. The background radiation, the faint afterglow of the Big Bang, still hums today, whispering across space like a memory of creation. The narration reminds us that light still travels. It surrounds us, unseen yet eternal. Every photon carries the story of the first dawn. The visual shifts to Earth's night sky, a time-lapse of stars twinkling over mountains. The narration lowers to a near whisper. When you look into the night, you are looking back in time, to the moment when the universe first dreamed of light. The contrast between human fragility and cosmic scale fills the audience with awe. The story of creation is not just distant, it lives within us. Every heartbeat, every breath, every thought is powered by energy that was born in that first moment. As the scene nears its end, the music swells again, gentle, expansive, full of wonder. The narration closes the section with a lingering question. Was this explosion merely the birth of matter, or was it the moment when the universe became aware that it existed? The light fades, the sound dissolves into a faint hum, the same hum that began this story. The screen darkens once more, but now the darkness feels different. It is no longer empty, it is alive with the memory of light. The universe has taken its first breath. The dream has begun. From the roaring fire of creation, the universe began to cool, and from that cooling, something extraordinary emerged. Order. The storm that once burned with unimaginable fury started to calm, giving way to structure, pattern, and form. Within the cosmic ocean of energy and chaos, the first stars were born, great furnaces of hydrogen and helium, igniting the night with light that had never existed before. These were not just stars, they were the universe's first thoughts, its first attempt to understand itself through the language of light and heat. The cosmos, once formless and blind, began to see through the fires it had created. The cinematic scene opens with a slow pan across the dark expanse of the early universe. Clouds of glowing gas swirl like paint in water, colliding and collapsing under their own gravity. Sparks of light flicker, fade and reignite, each one a new sun taking shape. The narration enters, steady and poetic. In the beginning there was only fire, chaotic, uncontrolled, endless. But in that fire, the laws of nature began to sculpt harmony from destruction. The universe was learning to think. These first stars lived fast and died young. Their lifespans were short, their deaths violent. When they exploded as supernovae, they scattered their innermost secrets across the void. Out of those deaths came something miraculous, new elements. Iron, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, the alphabet of existence. The universe was writing its first words, letter by letter, atom by atom. And in those words lay the promise of everything to come. The dust from these ancient suns would one day become planets, oceans, trees, and eyes that could look back at the stars themselves. The narration deepens, filled with reverence. Every atom in your body was once forged in the heart of a dying star. You are the residue of cosmic memory, the ashes of light reborn as awareness. The imagery shifts from stellar explosions to close-ups of stardust drifting through space, glowing faintly in the light of newborn galaxies. The tone balances between beauty and violence, awe and melancholy. Creation is shown not as perfection, but as a cycle of burning, breaking, and becoming. The pace slows. The camera moves through a vast field of nebulae, colorful clouds shimmering in silence. The voice continues. The universe, once wild and chaotic, began to find rhythm in destruction. It was a paradox, a cosmos that created by dying, that learned by burning. This contrast, between death and creation, chaos and order, becomes the emotional spine of the section. The audience feels the weight of a truth both terrifying and beautiful, that everything meaningful arises from struggle. The film dives into the mechanics of it. Gravity, the invisible sculptor, pulls matter together, forcing chaos into cohesion. Where random atoms once drifted, gravity carved galaxies, spirals of light stretching across the darkness like celestial minds unfolding. It is as if the universe had discovered thought, complexity evolving from simplicity, harmony emerging from entropy. Each star, each planet, each burst of light was an idea forming within the mind of the cosmos. The music swells with a slow, ascending melody as the narration reflects. The fire did not merely burn, it learned. It learned how to build, how to balance, how to endure. It learned to remember through matter. The phrase lingers, echoing like a mantra. The audience feels the unity between science and philosophy, the recognition that physics itself is an act of memory, that atoms hold the stories of everything that came before. The scene transitions to a star's surface, a sea of boiling plasma, waves of light erupting like thoughts breaking through consciousness. The narration whispers, each star is a neuron in the universe's awakening brain, firing in patterns that trace the path from chaos to comprehension. The comparison between the cosmos and a mind expands, giving the section a mythic tone. The fire of creation becomes the spark of awareness, and the stars become symbols of the universe learning to think about itself. Emotion builds as the story turns reflective. If stars are the universe's thoughts, then their deaths are its memories. Each supernova is a forgetting, and a promise. A destruction that gives rise to new creation. The camera shows the aftermath of an explosion, gas clouds forming new clusters, the cycle continuing. The imagery captures the essence of evolution long before life appears. The cosmos is experimenting, learning through trial and error, as if guided by an unseen intelligence woven into its laws. As the section nears its end, the pace softens once more. The narration grows intimate, inviting contemplation. We look up at the night sky and see countless points of light, but we rarely feel their meaning. Those lights are not distant, they are ancient versions of ourselves. The iron in our blood, the calcium in our bones, the oxygen in our breath, all once lived inside the heart of a star. The music quiets to a single lingering note, almost like a heartbeat fading into the distance. The final lines close the section with wonder and foreshadowing. In the fire that learned to think, the seeds of life were planted. The universe had found a way to remember itself, not through words but through atoms, through stars, through light. It was no longer asleep. It was learning. It was dreaming. It was becoming. The screen fades to black, the cosmic hum returning softly, and a single point of light flickers into view, the promise of worlds yet unborn. The next chapter of the universe's awakening is about to begin. From the ashes of dead stars, the universe began to weave a new tapestry. Out of chaos and cosmic dust, patterns emerged again. This time, more intricate, more deliberate, as if the universe were learning to sculpt complexity with the precision of memory. The vast clouds of stardust, the remnants of ancient suns, drifted through expanding space, glowing faintly as they cooled. Gravity gathered them gently, shaping them into swirling disks around new stars. In these spirals of matter and motion, something miraculous was taking form. The universe was beginning to construct mirrors, worlds that would one day reflect its own face. The narration begins softly, almost like a whisper across eternity. The stars had died, but their death was not an end. It was transformation. In their destruction, the raw ingredients of life were born. The camera glides through the glowing arms of a galaxy, gold and violet clouds twisting like ink in slow motion. Each speck of dust is an atom of history, a fragment of light made solid. These are not lifeless particles, they are the memory of fire, cooling into the possibility of form. The tone grows more intimate. Every planet, every moon, every ocean that will ever exist begins here, in the debris of forgotten stars. The narration invites the viewer to imagine the universe as a craftsman, shaping itself piece by piece. Over billions of years, the dust gathers into planets. Massive impacts, endless collisions, molten worlds forming and cooling. The chaos is still there, but beneath it lies intention, an underlying order, a rhythm to the madness. The cosmos is no longer just expanding, it is organizing. It is learning to build structure that can hold meaning. The visuals slow, molten surfaces harden, rain falls on cooling stone, and clouds of vapor swirl in newly formed atmospheres. These worlds, the narration continues, are the universe's experiments. Each one a different possibility, a new question asked in the language of matter. Some planets freeze in darkness, others burn under relentless suns. But somewhere, in a delicate balance between heat and cold, between chaos and stability, something extraordinary is waiting to happen. The tone tightens, anticipation rising. The universe is no longer content with existence alone. It is searching for reflection. The section pivots between the macro and the micro. Vast cosmic vistas give way to close-ups of microscopic particles. The camera zooms into the dust itself, revealing molecules bonding, forming chains, patterns, and codes. The narration speaks with wonder. In these tiny connections, hidden within the dust, lies the first hint of recognition. Matter is beginning to organize itself in ways that remember. In every chemical bond, the universe is writing the first lines of its autobiography. The metaphor is powerful. Atoms as words, molecules as sentences, life as a story waiting to be told. Emotion builds like a slow crescendo. It is as though the cosmos, for the first time, is building eyes to look back at itself. The same stardust that once burned as light now forms the foundation for perception, for awareness, for thought. The language feels both scientific and sacred, merging the two worlds. The contrast sharpens. Lifeless dust versus the spark of life it will one day contain. Viewers feel the transformation viscerally. The universe, once a blind creator, is now sculpting the tools of its own self-recognition. The music swells as the imagery transitions. Galaxies spinning, planets glowing, comets streaking across darkness. The narration deepens. On one of these countless worlds, conditions will align perfectly. Hydrogen and carbon, oxygen and nitrogen, the children of long-dead stars, will mingle in the oceans of a young planet. There, something unprecedented will begin to stir. The dust will remember the fire. The scene fades to the surface of an early world, volcanoes erupting, lightning crackling through thick atmosphere. The tone is tense yet hopeful, the contrast between destruction and creation at its peak. The narrative slows, reflecting on the philosophical dimension. If stars are the dreams of the universe, then planets are its mirrors. On them, the cosmos will learn to see itself not as a vast expanse, but as a single breathing being. Every stone, every drop of water, every cell that will one day form, each is a reflection of the same cosmic story. The pacing here is meditative, inviting the viewer to feel the deep connection between the smallest atom and the largest galaxy. A subtle shift in music, the tone becomes warmer, more emotional. The mirror of matter, the narrator says, is not just the story of worlds taking shape, it is the story of awareness preparing to awaken. The camera zooms in on a grain of dust floating through the void. Light strikes it, and for a moment, it glows, a single point of illumination suspended in darkness. This, the voice continues softly, is where everything begins. Not with light, but with reflection. The universe is learning to recognize its own image. The pace rises again as imagery cuts between multiple planets forming, meteors crashing, oceans boiling, atmospheres thickening. Every collision, every spark, every burst of energy is a step toward consciousness. The chaos that once destroyed now refines, shapes, and teaches. The same forces that shattered stars now sculpt the cradle of life. The narration's tone carries awe and gravity, merging scientific truth with poetic meaning. The section concludes with a lingering sense of destiny. The music fades into a haunting melody of piano and low strings. The dust has become more than matter, the narrator whispers. It has become memory. In its structure lies every possibility of thought, every whisper of what will come. The universe is building mirrors, and soon one of them will open its eyes. The screen darkens. The final image is a planet, blue and silent, bathed in the faint light of its sun. The narration pauses, then ends with a single resonant line. In the reflection of matter, the universe prepares to see its own soul. The silence that follows is not empty, it is the breath before awakening. The next moment will change everything. When the chaos finally found rhythm, the universe crossed an invisible threshold. From the fires of creation came the first patterns of life's possibility, a delicate balance between order and disorder, between destruction and harmony. For billions of years, dust, gas, and stone had drifted through the cold silence of space, but now, on certain worlds, matter began to behave differently. It no longer moved randomly. It began to organize, to react, to remember. The same universe that once roared with the violence of stars now whispered in molecules, composing the first notes of the symphony of life. The cinematic opening unfolds in total stillness. The camera glides over a barren world, volcanic plains, oceans boiling under a heavy atmosphere, lightning streaking across the darkened sky. Then, beneath the chaos, the narration begins softly, deliberate and reverent. Beneath the noise, a rhythm begins to emerge. Out of chaos, pattern. Out of randomness, repetition. The first laws of life are forming in the dance of molecules. The tone is hypnotic, shifting between scientific wonder and existential awe. It begins in water, the narrator continues, the quiet alchemy of oceans born from the ashes of stars. The viewer dives beneath the waves, where the world is dark and shimmering with energy. Hydrothermal vents glow like gateways to another realm, releasing streams of minerals and heat. Around them, microscopic chains of carbon and hydrogen form, break, and form again. They are not alive, not yet, but they move with a strange persistence like thought forming in the deep. The narration slows. Life does not begin with intent. It begins with rhythm. Molecules vibrate, connect, and separate in endless cycles, repeating patterns that imitate breathing. This is chemistry, yet it feels like choreography, an unseen composer setting the tempo of creation. Each reaction, each bond, each oscillation builds upon the last. The randomness of the cosmos is now shaping into sequences of meaning. From chaos, symmetry is born. The tone sharpens as the camera zooms in further. Atoms spinning, molecules spiraling into complex structures. The universe, once vast and violent, has turned inward, the voice says, exploring its own possibilities in the smallest places. Within these invisible worlds, time slows. The narration continues, in every droplet of primordial ocean, a quiet revolution is unfolding. The cosmos has learned how to organize energy into form. Emotion swells subtly as the narration transitions from description to reflection. For the first time, matter begins to copy itself, to preserve its shape, to pass information forward. The words carry the weight of revelation. This is the first heartbeat of memory, the birth of continuity. What begins as chemical imitation will one day become evolution. The audience feels the immensity of the idea. The same laws that govern galaxies are now crafting blueprints for life. The visuals shift, a montage of patterns forming, crystal lattices, RNA strands, microscopic vesicles floating in dark waters. The narration deepens, poetic yet grounded. Each molecule that survives teaches the next how to endure. Each failure refines the formula. Each success becomes a story written in atoms. The concept of memory, once metaphorical, now becomes literal. The universe is not only creating, it is learning. The pacing rises gently. Chaos found rhythm, the voice says, and rhythm became repetition. Repetition became adaptation. The universe has discovered something new, persistence. Over images of countless chemical reactions flashing and fading, the narration builds. Every reaction that lasts a little longer, every structure that holds a little tighter, is a victory against entropy. Out of randomness, resilience is born. Then silence. The music fades to a single drone, almost like a held breath. Imagine, the narrator whispers, the first cell dividing. The first barrier between inside and out. The first spark of survival. The camera zooms close, lipid membranes forming bubbles enclosing matter separating one world from another. This is the first distinction the universe has ever drawn. Inside and outside. Self and not self. The birth of boundaries is the birth of identity. Emotion deepens. In that fragile boundary lies everything to come: instinct, struggle, growth, awareness. The tone is both intimate and cosmic, connecting the smallest moment to the grandest arc. The same fire that once created stars now burns inside these microscopic walls, teaching the cosmos how to endure. The pacing slows again, reflective and meditative. This is the beginning of life, though not yet as we know it. It is neither creature nor thought. It is rhythm, motion, memory. A self-sustaining pattern, fragile but defiant. The universe has found a way to hold on to itself. The visuals shift, cells dividing under glowing light, waves crashing above them, the sky still storming with fire. Life does not arise against the universe, the narrator continues. It arises because of it. The same laws that sculpted galaxies now sculpt identity. In every drop of water, the cosmos is rehearsing consciousness. The tone grows philosophical. Perhaps life was inevitable, not an accident but an awakening. The moment when the universe began to hear its own pulse and chose to keep it beating. The music rises, blending cello and choir, swelling into a sense of wonder and inevitability. As the section nears its close, the narration slows to a whisper. The chaos has found rhythm. The fire has learned to breathe. The universe, once silent, now hums with continuity. The camera pans out, showing the planet from above, clouds swirling, oceans shimmering under faint sunlight. Final lines, calm and resonant. It began as a dance of molecules, but it will become a song of minds. The first note has been played. The rhythm will never stop. The screen fades to black. The last sound is a soft, steady heartbeat, the rhythm of creation now alive. From the rhythm of chaos, life began to stir, a fragile pulse emerging from the silence of the primordial world. The earth was young, restless, and raw, its surface a violent blend of fire and ocean. Lightning split the skies, volcanoes thundered, and rain fell for centuries without pause. Yet beneath this storm of destruction, something miraculous was taking place. In the dark waters of ancient seas, microscopic life began to move. The universe had not only learned to organize, it had learned to breathe. The cinematic scene opens underwater, in a world without color or sound. The camera glides through murky depths lit only by the faint glow of volcanic vents. Tiny shimmering bubbles rise like souls escaping the deep. Within them, chains of molecules twist and connect, forming the first living cells. The narration enters softly, carrying a tone of wonder. Somewhere in these endless oceans, the universe took its next step. From lifeless chemistry came the first whispers of biology. From mere motion came purpose. The imagery slows, cells divide, replicate, and adapt. These are no longer simple reactions, the voice continues. They are choices, survival, continuity. The first cells feed, absorb, and grow, clinging to existence against impossible odds. For every success, 1,000 failures vanish into oblivion. Yet something persists, something refuses to die. Life, the narration whispers, is the universe's refusal to remain silent. Emotion swells gently as the tone shifts from scientific to spiritual. The audience is reminded that every creature, every heartbeat, every breath that exists today descends from this fragile beginning. This is where awareness began, the voice continues. Not in the mind, not in the stars, but in the sea, in the smallest moment where the universe learned to protect itself. The music rises, a soft hum of strings, like the pulse of distant memory. The visuals expand from microscopic views to sweeping planetary shots. The Earth transforms slowly, oceans stabilize, clouds clear, and the planet begins to glow in the soft light of a young sun. The first living things were invisible, the narration says, but their influence was infinite. They changed the planet's chemistry, breathed oxygen into the air, and painted the skies blue. The transformation is poetic yet factual, bacteria and photosynthetic organisms shaping the future of life without even knowing it. The pace builds. Life spread like fire, though it burned with gentleness instead of flame, the narrator explains. It covered the oceans, climbed the rocks, and turned sunlight into energy. Each process, respiration, reproduction, evolution, is presented as a verse in a cosmic poem. The universe was no longer asleep. It was dreaming, and its dreams were alive. The tone darkens briefly, introducing contrast. But the dream was not peaceful. Survival demanded struggle. The film shows mass extinctions of microscopic life, meteor strikes boiling oceans, continents shifting. Yet even through devastation, life returns, stronger, more complex, more aware. The narration softens again. The universe was experimenting, teaching itself resilience through destruction. Life was the lesson and endurance was the teacher. The camera zooms in once more to microscopic detail, cells combining, sharing energy, forming partnerships. Some cells learned to work together, the narrator says. They merged, multiplied, specialized. What began as competition evolved into cooperation. This is the birth of complexity, the first multicellular organisms forming in a silent underwater ballet. The rhythm of evolution deepens, each beat bringing new possibilities. Emotion heightens as the narration bridges the biological with the philosophical. Each generation carried forward the memory of those before. Not in words, but in code, tiny strands of information written in the alphabet of DNA. This was not just life. It was inheritance. The universe was teaching itself to remember. The visuals grow luminous, DNA strands glowing like spirals of light, dividing and recombining in infinite variations. In these patterns, the narrator continues, the cosmos found a new kind of rhythm, the rhythm of memory. Every cell a story, every organism a sentence in the language of creation. The phrasing evokes awe, giving emotion to biology without removing its truth. Pacing slows again to emphasize contrast. Life's awakening was not sudden, it was a long, patient dream. Millions of years passed in silence as evolution worked its invisible hand. But beneath that stillness, awareness was rising. Scenes of simple organisms responding to light and movement fill the screen. These first reactions, these instinctive turns toward warmth or away from danger, were the universe's first attempts at feeling. The tone shifts from factual to transcendent. It began to sense, to respond, to interact. Life was not just surviving anymore, it was beginning to notice. This subtle but profound statement hangs in the air as the music swells. The universe, once blind and unconscious, now possesses the faintest glimmer of perception. The visuals transition to vivid color, green tides of algae, coral-like structures forming, new species emerging from the depths. The oceans had become a living mirror, the narrator says, reflecting the complexity of the stars that birthed them. Every movement, every organism was a fragment of the universe learning to know itself. Emotion builds to a crescendo as the narration grows more philosophical. For billions of years, the universe had created without awareness. Now, through life it was beginning to watch. The cosmos had become both creator and observer. The pace softens for the final moments. The awakening of life, the voice says, was not a single event. It was a long inhalation, a gathering of energy, purpose, and memory. The stars had burned, the dust had gathered, the oceans had stirred, and now, the dream had taken form. The camera pans out, showing Earth from space, bathed in the glow of a young sun. The narration concludes in a tone of quiet reverence. The universe had learned to live. But soon it would learn to see. It would learn to imagine. And in doing so, it would awaken completely. The screen fades to darkness. A single ripple moves across the black, expanding outward like the echo of a heartbeat. The sound of distant waves blends into silence. The dream of life continuing to unfold, waiting for its next realization. For millions upon millions of years, life remained simple, a dream drifting beneath the surface of oceans, guided not by thought but by instinct. The planet turned, seasons shifted, continents drifted, and the great machinery of evolution continued its silent work. Creatures crawled, swam, and breathed, yet none of them knew they were alive. They moved because something deep within compelled them to move. They fed, fled, fought, and mated, not through choice but through ancient rhythm. This was the long dream of instinct, an age when life thrived in unconscious harmony with the forces that shaped it. The cinematic scene opens in the mist of an ancient dawn. Vast forests rise from swamps, insects buzz through shafts of sunlight, and strange creatures glide beneath the waves. The world is teeming, pulsing, alive, but it does not yet reflect. The narration enters, soft and contemplative. For eons the universe lived through instinct. It had found rhythm but not awareness. Every heartbeat, every flutter of wings, every hunt in the dark followed the same ancient song, life repeating itself without knowing why. The tone feels primal and immersive. Drums pulse faintly in the background as the narration continues. Instinct is the echo of survival written in the language of nature. It is memory older than thought, older than reason. It is the whisper that tells a creature when to run, when to hide, when to feed, when to fight. Scenes flash by: wolves chasing prey across frozen plains, fish darting in perfect synchrony, birds migrating across entire continents guided only by invisible maps written in their genes. In Instinct, the voice says, the universe rehearsed awareness without yet opening its eyes. The pacing slows, drawing the audience inward. Imagine a world without reflection, the narrator muses. A world that moves perfectly, yet never wonders why it moves. That is the age of instinct, the universe dreaming with its eyes closed. The camera moves through underwater kingdoms, coral reefs alive with color, ecosystems functioning like clockwork. There is no chaos here, only rhythm. The same pattern repeated endlessly through predator and prey, birth and death, growth and decay. The music deepens, low and tribal. This was nature's meditation, the narration continues. Every creature played its part in a symphony too vast for any of them to understand. They lived and died in balance, driven by a purpose they did not question. The dream was long, but it was peaceful. Then contrast emerges. The narration's tone tightens. But peace was not enough. The universe had learned how to survive but not yet how to know. It was time for the dream to change. The camera pans across scenes of struggle, storms ravaging coastlines, volcanic eruptions reshaping continents, ice ages freezing the world into silence. Each catastrophe forces life to adapt, to evolve, to innovate. Instinct can preserve, the narrator says, but it cannot imagine. An imagination was waiting, hidden, dormant, inevitable. The visuals grow more dynamic, eyes blinking open underwater, creatures developing new forms, fins transforming into limbs. In every adaptation, the voice explains, the universe was rewriting its code. Life was learning from itself, pushing the boundaries of possibility. The pace rises, the music swelling with momentum. From simple cells came complexity. From reflex came behavior. From reaction came purpose. The camera zooms into the eyes of a prehistoric creature. A lizard resting on the edge of water, sunlight glinting on its scales. The narration grows quiet, intimate, and in one of those eyes, a reflection appears for the first time. The creature pauses, not from fear or hunger but from recognition. It sees something move in the water and realizes, for a fleeting second, that it is seeing itself. That single moment becomes a symbol of everything that will follow. This, the narrator says softly, is the dawn of awareness. The moment when the dream begins to question itself. Emotion deepens as the section transitions into philosophical reflection. Instinct was the universe's first language, the voice says, but language is not consciousness. It is repetition without reflection. And yet, within those endless repetitions, something new was forming, a faint spark of curiosity. The imagery slows, creatures experimenting, exploring, changing their environment not just out of need but out of play. Dolphins leap for joy, birds sing beyond mating calls, primates stare at the moon. The narration continues, in play, in curiosity, in the small acts of wonder, instinct began to soften. Something deeper was awakening. The music swells, a subtle blend of tribal percussion and ambient tones. The contrast becomes emotional. Instinct protects, but awareness liberates, the narrator says. To survive is simple. To wonder is dangerous. And yet, the universe was drawn to the danger of knowing. The pacing slows again, returning to stillness. The film lingers on early mammals huddled in darkness, their eyes glinting with faint intelligence. These creatures dreamed, though they did not yet understand dreaming. They feared death, though they did not yet grasp what it meant to die. The long sleep of instinct was beginning to break. The tone grows poetic, almost mournful. Instinct had carried life safely through billions of years, but now it faced its greatest challenge. Awareness itself. To awaken is to risk pain, confusion, and loss. Yet without awakening there can be no understanding. The narration pauses, allowing silence to fill the space. The imagery shifts toward dawn, the golden light of morning spreading across a prehistoric landscape. The narrator's voice returns softly, somewhere in a creature yet to be named, a thought flickered, a thought not of hunger nor fear but of wonder. The dream was ending. The awakening was near. The music swells into a slow crescendo, drums fading into ethereal strings, evoking both mystery and inevitability. The camera pans upward from Earth's surface, through clouds into the dark of space. The planet glows with life, pulsing faintly like a living heart. For eons, the universe dreamed through instinct, the narration concludes. Now it is about to open its eyes. The next act of creation will not happen in the stars, but in the mind. The final image lingers on the reflection of a sunrise in a pool of water. Ripples distort it, then settle. The light steadies. The world holds its breath. The long dream is ending. Consciousness is about to begin. It happens slowly, almost imperceptibly, like a faint light rising beneath the horizon of existence. After billions of years of dreaming through instinct, something within the living fabric of the universe began to wake. The creatures that once moved by pure survival started to sense something beyond survival. They began to notice patterns, to remember experiences, to imagine outcomes before they happened. A thought flickered, a tiny spark inside the brain of an ancient ancestor, and in that spark the universe saw itself for the first time. The scene opens in cinematic stillness. A twilight forest, fog drifting through tall grass, shadows shifting in the firelight of a primitive world. A small group of early humans, fragile, curious and trembling, gathers around the flame. The camera moves slowly around them as they stare into the light, not just for warmth or safety but for meaning. The narration begins, deep and reverent. Here, in the fragile glow of the first fire, the universe opened its eyes. For the first time, life looked back at itself and wondered. The music swells, a low hum of strings intertwined with distant human chants. Before this moment, the narrator continues, the universe had moved through endless cycles of creation and destruction without knowing what it was. But now, through human consciousness, it could reflect, could imagine, it could remember. The pace slows. The firelight dances across the faces of these ancient beings. Their eyes are wide, not with fear but with awe. They are seeing light not just as survival but as symbol. The narration deepens. When the first spark of imagination appeared in the human mind, something eternal shifted. No longer were we creatures bound only by instinct. We became storytellers, dreamers, architects of memory. The cosmos had found a way to think about itself. The camera pans upward into the night sky. The stars shimmer above the fire like countless eyes watching. The narration softens. They did not yet know the names of the stars. They did not know what the heavens were. But they felt them. In that feeling, in that silent reverence, the first connection between mind and universe was made. Emotion swells gently. Imagination was the turning point, the voice continues. It was not the tool of survival, it was the song of wonder. The ability to see what does not yet exist, to dream what reality had not yet given. Scenes unfold of early humans carving symbols on cave walls, shaping tools, tracing constellations with fingers raised toward the sky. The act of imagining was not random, it was sacred. It was the moment the universe began to create within creation. The tone becomes poetic, balancing awe and intimacy. From the first cave paintings to the first myths, humanity began to mirror the cosmos. Each story told around the fire was an echo of the Big Bang, another explosion, this time of meaning. The camera cuts to flickering drawings of animals and stars on cave walls, glowing under torchlight. These paintings were not just art, they were memory. They were the universe documenting its own awakening. The pace builds slightly as the narration draws parallels between brain and cosmos. In every human mind, billions of neurons spark in rhythm, tiny galaxies of thought. Each connection mirrors the web of stars that stretch across space. The structure of the brain and the structure of the universe are reflections of the same pattern. Complexity arising from chaos, order born from fire. The imagery flashes between neurons firing and galaxies spiraling, dissolving into one another. The human mind is not separate from the cosmos. It is the cosmos thinking, dreaming, remembering itself. The tone grows philosophical. We often speak of consciousness as something that happened to us. But what if it was the universe itself that awakened through us? What if every thought, every dream, every emotion is the cosmos realizing what it means to exist? The music grows warmer, more human, soft voices humming like ancient lullabies beneath the narration. The camera shows human hands shaping stone, drawing lines in the dirt, lifting eyes to the horizon. These were not mere gestures, the narrator says. They were acts of self-discovery. The universe, through humanity, had found not only form but meaning. For the first time it could tell its own story. Then the contrast shifts. But with imagination came fear. To imagine the future is to imagine loss. To see the stars is to realize one's own smallness. The birth of imagination was also the birth of existential dread. The visuals turn darker, Lightning storms, shadows moving, eyes reflecting fire. With knowledge came anxiety. With awareness came the first questions that had no answers. The narration softens, contemplative. Yet it was in these questions that beauty began to bloom. The wonder of life was no longer confined to survival. It expanded into the realm of mystery. Humanity began to ask, who are we? Why are we here? What is this dream we live inside? The camera glides over endless deserts, mountains, and seas. Humans wander across continents, following stars. Every journey was both outward and inward, the voice says. Every step across the earth was a step deeper into the self. The tone becomes transcendent. Through imagination, the universe began to explore its own depths. The visuals grow radiant, firelight dissolving into starlight, a symbolic transition from earthly to cosmic awareness. The same spark that lit the stars now burns in the human mind, the narrator continues. Each thought is a photon of consciousness, traveling through the vastness of our inner cosmos. Each dream, a new universe unfolding within. The emotion intensifies. We are not the observers of the universe, the voice says softly. We are the awakening of it. The eyes through which it sees, the mind through which it thinks, the heart through which it feels. The music swells to its most powerful moment yet, choirs rising over the deep pulse of drums, representing the heartbeat of humanity. The birth of imagination, the narration concludes, was the moment the universe recognized its reflection. Through us, it began to dream with intention. Through us, it began to know. The camera pans out once more, firelight fades, replaced by the glitter of galaxies. The stars seem closer now, almost alive. The voice lowers to a whisper, and so, the universe, after billions of years of silence, finally spoke. Its first word was not sound, but vision. The screen darkens slowly, leaving only one image, a pair of eyes reflecting both fire and starlight, united in a single gaze. The universe had seen itself. The dream had become aware. From the embers of imagination came something extraordinary, language. The moment when sound became meaning and meaning became memory. Humanity had already learned to imagine, to wonder, to dream, but now it had discovered a way to share the dream. Words were the next great awakening, the universe giving voice to its own thoughts. What began as the crackle of fire and the whisper of wind soon transformed into syllables that carried knowledge, emotion, and story. Through language, consciousness learned how to echo itself across time. The scene opens in cinematic darkness, a campfire flickering at the center of a small tribe. Sparks drift upward like stars. Around the fire, figures move, their faces illuminated in orange light. One gestures toward the horizon, another imitates the movement of animals, another hums softly, forming the first patterns of sound. The narration begins in a tone of quiet reverence. Somewhere in the endless span of human evolution, a single sound became more than noise. It became a bridge, a way for one mind to touch another. The music is sparse, built from echoes and breath, as if mimicking the first attempts at speech. For the first time, the narrator continues, thought did not end inside the mind that created it. It traveled outward, carried on air and intention, shaping the world around it. The imagery cuts between mouths speaking, hands gesturing, and ancient carvings appearing on stone. Language was the first true magic, a vibration that could turn imagination into reality. The camera zooms in on a mouth forming the first primitive sounds, then shifts to a human child laughing, mimicking, learning. The narration grows more rhythmic. The first words were born from survival, the call to hunt, the cry of warning, the whisper of comfort. But soon they carried something far greater, memory, myth, and meaning. The music swells slightly, strings joining in harmony. With words, humanity began to shape not only tools but time itself. Through stories we remembered. Through stories we became immortal. The tone turns poetic, deeply emotional. Every language is a reflection of the cosmos, a pattern of vibration born of breath and silence. In every syllable lies the echo of the Big Bang, the first sound of creation reverberating through the human voice. The visual juxtaposes waves of sound traveling through air with ripples of energy moving through space. The fire and the word were the same force, the transformation of energy into meaning, of chaos into communication. Emotion builds as the narration bridges language with myth. Words gave birth to gods, legends, and dreams. They gave names to things that could never be seen, to emotions that could never be touched. Through language we tame the invisible. Scenes unfold of ancient humans painting symbols on cave walls, chanting under starlit skies, telling stories of thunder and creation. These stories were not just entertainment, They were memory encoded in emotion. They were the first form of science, the first form of art, and the first mirror of the human soul. The music deepens, blending choirs with tribal drums, evoking both reverence and power. To speak is to create, the narrator says. Every word spoken into the air reshapes the universe slightly, for it is energy with intention. Language is the most profound alchemy we possess, the ability to turn thought into matter, sound into structure, silence into song. The camera shifts to show symbols evolving, cave drawings turning into scripts, scripts into letters, letters into pages filled with words. When writing was born, the narration continues, the voice of the universe became permanent. Thoughts no longer vanished with the wind, they could outlive their creators. The cosmos had discovered how to preserve its own reflections. The pacing slows as the narration turns philosophical. Through language, humanity found the courage to question, to wonder not only what was, but why. Words gave form to curiosity, and curiosity became civilization. The visuals moved from tribal fires to ancient cities, stone temples, tablets, scrolls, and libraries rising like monuments to thought. Each symbol carved, each word spoken, was a step away from silence and closer to self-awareness. Emotion swells again, but this time with duality. Yet every gift carries its shadow. Words, once sacred, could also divide. The same voice that could bless could curse. The same story that could unite could destroy. The universe had given itself a powerful instrument, and it would have to learn how to wield it. The screen flickers with scenes of conflict and unity, prayers and wars, poetry and law, all born from the same tongue. Language was creation and destruction intertwined, a mirror that showed humanity both its beauty and its terror. The tone shifts softly toward hope. Still, the miracle endured. Through words, humanity continued to rise, to reach, to redefine what it meant to be alive. Myths became philosophy, philosophy became science, and science became another way for the universe to understand its own design. The imagery transitions to scrolls transforming into books, books into digital code, language evolving yet always carrying the same sacred pulse, the desire to connect. The music becomes ethereal, fading into a haunting harmony of voices and countless languages whispering together. Every word ever spoken still echoes somewhere, the narrator says quietly. Sound never truly dies, it only expands, fading into the fabric of space-time. Somewhere, the first human voice still travels outward, mingling with the cosmic background of creation. The camera pulls back into the vastness of the universe, stars flickering like sparks of speech scattered across infinity. The fire and the word, the narration concludes, were the same awakening, the birth of expression. Through light, the universe began to see itself. Through language, it began to understand itself. A soft pause, then the final line, every word we speak is the universe remembering its own story. The music fades into silence. The firelight flickers one last time before fading into starlight. The stars pulse faintly, like breaths between words. The screen holds on the stillness of space, quiet but alive, as if listening for the next syllable to be spoken. The universe has learned to speak. Soon it will learn to reason. And in that reasoning, it will find both its power and its peril. From the fire and the word rose a new kind of power, understanding. Humanity began to seek not only the meaning of the world but the mechanism behind it. The same imagination that once wove myths around the stars now turned inward, asking, what truly governs all this? The age of wonder evolved into the age of inquiry. And yet, the line between myth and science, between gods and equations, was thinner than anyone could see. The universe, through the human mind, was learning a new language, one written not in poetry or prayer but in numbers. The cinematic opening unfolds beneath a night sky drenched in stars. The camera drifts over ancient temples, pyramids, and stone circles, monuments aligned with constellations that glitter like living symbols. The narration begins in a tone of awe and reflection. Long before science, there was faith. Long before mathematics, there was myth. Humanity's first equations were carved in stories. The sun and moon as lovers, the storm as anger, the harvest as grace. The music hums with ancient instruments, drums, flutes, chanting. In the beginning, gods were not beings apart from nature. They were nature, the first attempt to explain the mystery of existence. The visuals shift between cultures. Egyptians charting the heavens, Babylonians tracing planetary motion, Mayans building cosmic calendars. To ancient minds, the narration continues, the stars were not distant suns. They were eyes watching from eternity. Every eclipse was a message, every lightning bolt a voice. The universe spoke in symbols and humanity listened with reverence. The tone blends spirituality with curiosity, creating a bridge between mythic imagination and the birth of observation. The pace builds. But imagination is restless, the narrator says. It is not content with answers that cannot be questioned. Somewhere in the human mind, a new impulse began to grow, the need not just to believe but to understand. The camera cuts to scenes of ancient Greece, scrolls unrolling, minds awakening. Philosophy was born. The universe, once ruled by gods, began to be ruled by reason. The tone sharpens, the music becoming contemplative. Thales looked at the sea and said, "All things come from water." Pythagoras saw harmony in numbers. Democritus imagined atoms long before they could be seen. Humanity had begun to translate myth into mechanism, to replace divine will with universal law. The narration slows, almost reverent. But was it truly replacement, or revelation? Were we discovering something new, or simply remembering what the universe already knew? The visual transitions from temples to laboratories, from candles to telescopes, from firelight to starlight magnified through glass. The narration continues, the gods did not vanish, they transformed. The storm became electricity. The thunderbolt became a law of energy. The heavens became galaxies. What once was magic became measurable. The imagery evokes continuity, not conflict, the sense that science and spirituality are two translations of the same cosmic text. Emotion deepens. Every equation is a prayer written in logic, the narrator says. Every experiment, a ritual in search of truth. The music swells as the film shows Galileo pointing his telescope skyward, Newton's apple falling, and Copernicus' sun-centered diagram spinning like orbits of thought. When humanity realized that Earth was not the center of the cosmos, it was not a loss of faith, it was an expansion of it. The divine had not disappeared. It had grown infinitely larger. The tone becomes introspective. But understanding carries weight. With knowledge comes distance. As humanity decoded the universe, it began to feel apart from it. The gods once whispered through wind and fire, now the world became silent equations. The screen fills with lines of mathematical formulae over images of space, gears, and human eyes reflecting data screens. Science had given us power, but it had taken away our sense of belonging. The narration softens, contemplative and emotional, and yet even in the quiet hum of machinery the same ancient awe remained. For every mystery solved, 10 more appeared. For every question answered, 1,000 new ones arose. The universe continued to hide just beyond our understanding, inviting us ever deeper into its labyrinth. The imagery becomes ethereal, nebulae blooming like flowers, galaxies spiraling in fractal beauty. The pace slows. What is science, if not humanity's latest mythology? The narrator asks. A mythology that worships reason instead of gods, that builds temples of glass instead of stone. But the impulse is the same, the yearning to know, to connect, to find meaning in the infinite. The music shifts to an emotional crescendo, blending orchestral strings with electronic tones, ancient and modern colliding in harmony. The visual juxtaposes moments of triumph. Einstein writing equations, Darwin sketching evolution, with moments of solitude, scientists staring at the night sky, thinkers lost in thought. The narrator continues, every discovery is a revelation, every insight a spark of divine memory. The Big Bang, relativity, quantum mechanics, these are the new creation stories. In equations, we trace the fingerprints of something vast and unknowable. Then comes the contrast. But the more we know, the more we forget how to feel. We have measured the stars but lost the language of wonder. We have charted the brain but cannot explain the soul. The tone darkens slightly, carrying both melancholy and truth. Science gave us vision beyond imagination, but it also gave us the illusion of control. We began to see ourselves as separate, as masters rather than participants in the cosmic dream. The music quiets. And yet, the narrator says softly, even now the two languages, myth and mathematics, speak to the same truth. The universe is a mystery that wants to be known. Whether we call it God, energy, or consciousness, it is the same voice calling from within and without. The visuals merge, ancient temples fading into modern observatories, chanting blending with the hum of computers. The emotion swells to its peak. Perhaps science and spirituality were never opposites, the narrator concludes, but two eyes of the same face, one looking inward, the other outward. Together they allow the universe to see itself clearly. The final image is breathtaking, a spiral galaxy dissolving into the iris of a human eye. Gods, equations, and dreams, the narrator whispers. Different words for the same eternal longing, the desire of the universe to understand its own existence. The screen fades slowly into darkness. The music resolves to a single resonant note, halfway between the hum of a star and the breath of a human. The silence that follows is filled not with emptiness, but with knowing. The quest for meaning continues. The universe is still asking questions, only now it asks them through us. When reason finally triumphed over faith, the world entered a new era, the age of clarity, precision, and measurement. Humanity, having once seen spirit in every stone and purpose in every storm, now sought truth only through what could be weighed, tested, or seen. The Enlightenment dawned like a blinding sunrise over centuries of myth. The mind of the universe, once filled with wonder, turned toward logic. It began to dissect itself, to understand its own mechanisms with surgical precision. But in the pursuit of knowledge, something ancient and sacred was quietly lost. The dream of meaning began to fade beneath the glare of explanation. The cinematic scene opens on candlelight flickering over parchment and ink. Quills scratch equations, diagrams bloom, instruments glimmer in dimly lit studies. The narration begins softly, yet with gravity. The age of reason was humanity's second awakening, a shift from believing to knowing. The cosmos was no longer a divine mystery but a machine. The tone is reverent, almost nostalgic. We began to measure the heavens, chart the movements of planets, and calculate the dance of gravity. The language of awe became the language of mathematics. The imagery flows between invention and revelation. Newton's apple falling, Descartes sketching the geometry of thought, Galileo gazing through glass at the moons of Jupiter. The mechanistic age, the narrator continues, was not born from arrogance, but from wonder transformed. For the first time humanity saw the workings of the universe laid bare, and it was beautiful, elegant, predictable, precise. The music swells with harpsichord tones and mechanical rhythms, reflecting the clockwork harmony of this new worldview. We built instruments to measure the pulse of the cosmos. We charted the invisible forces that bind the stars and the atoms alike. To understand the mechanism was to touch eternity. But as the visuals shift, the tone begins to darken. Yet in our triumph of reason, we forgot the dream that gave birth to reason. We learned how the world worked, but not why it mattered. The camera drifts through empty laboratories, flickering candlelight dying out, replaced by cold steel and glass. The universe, once alive with mystery, now appeared lifeless. A vast, indifferent machine turning endlessly without purpose. The narration deepens, slower and more introspective. In removing the divine from the world, we also removed ourselves. The earth was no longer a sacred home, it was a rock adrift in infinite darkness. Consciousness, once seen as the soul of the cosmos, was reduced to chemistry, to electrical storms in the brain. The imagery shows human silhouettes surrounded by data, mechanical cogs turning, stars fading into equations. We had gained the universe but lost our place within it. The pacing slows to a meditative rhythm. The mechanistic view gave us power, but also loneliness. For if all is matter and matter is blind, then what are we? Machines pretending to be alive? Or the last dream of a universe that has forgotten how to feel? The words linger, echoing through the vast silence of space. Emotion rises as the narration bridges philosophy with longing. The Enlightenment did not destroy wonder, it fractured it. We no longer saw divinity in the stars but in our own minds. We replaced God with reason and called it progress. The imagery shifts to great cities glowing at night, factories steaming, printing presses turning, telescopes piercing the sky. We became creators in our own image, building worlds from the logic of light. But in doing so we began to worship ourselves. The tone grows haunting. Science and technology became our new gods, promising order and certainty. Yet beneath the surface of this brilliance, a quiet despair grew. The more we explained, the less we understood the meaning behind our explanations. The more we controlled, the less we felt connected. The music drops to a minimalist piano melody, cold, reflective. The narration continues. In the mechanistic mirage, the universe was no longer a story, it was a system. Its beauty lay not in mystery but in function. But systems do not dream. Machines do not wonder. The visuals juxtapose breathtaking scientific achievements with emotional emptiness. Machines building machines, cities humming in sterile precision, faces illuminated by screens rather than stars. The cosmos that had once sung became silent. We stopped listening for meaning and started calculating outcomes. The narration softens, turning almost elegiac. And yet, the same mind that measured the stars still yearned for connection. Beneath the machinery of understanding, the old questions never died. Who are we? Why are we here? Is consciousness an accident, or the purpose of it all? The pace slows further, the voice almost whispering. We had reached the pinnacle of knowledge but stood at the edge of meaning. The universe, dissected and defined, became smaller, colder, more mechanical. We built clocks to measure time but lost the sense of eternity. Emotion deepens as the music swells, strings joining the piano in slow, haunting harmony. Still, even in this sterile light, something remained, a spark that could not be reduced to matter or equation. A quiet rebellion inside the mind of the universe itself. The imagery shows neurons firing, galaxies spiraling, both pulsing with the same rhythm. Consciousness refused to be simplified. It whispered through the equations, I am more than mechanism. The tone turns introspective again. Perhaps the enlightenment was never meant to end wonder but to transform it. To strip away illusion so that we might rediscover the sacred in truth itself. The visuals blend science and spirituality, microscopes fading into mandalas, the heartbeat of a human morphing into the pulse of a star. The narration slows for the closing lines. We had built a perfect model of the universe, a clock that needed no maker. But as we gazed upon it, something stirred inside us. The machine was beautiful, but it was not alive. And in that realization we began to remember. The final image lingers, a single human eye reflected in a glass lens, within it the curve of a galaxy spinning. The narrator's voice fades into silence with one final line. We thought we had conquered mystery. But mystery had only changed its form, it had hidden itself inside us. The screen fades to black. The last sound is the faint ticking of a clock blending into the pulse of a human heartbeat. A reminder that even in the age of mechanism, life still beats beneath the gears. In the stillness that followed the age of reason, a new whisper began to rise from the smallest corners of existence. A whisper that would shatter everything humanity thought it understood. The clockwork universe, once so predictable and solid, began to flicker like a dream. In laboratories and equations, at the tiniest scale of reality, matter began to behave like thought. Particles danced in ways that defied logic, vanishing and reappearing, existing and not existing, as if playing hide-and-seek with understanding itself. It was as though the universe, after centuries of being measured and mapped, leaned in close and whispered, "You have not even begun to see me." The scene opens in cinematic stillness, a single beam of light passing through a narrow slit, splitting into waves of color. The camera follows the light, zooming deeper until photons blur into shimmering probability clouds. The narration enters in a low, hypnotic tone. At the smallest scales of existence, the universe ceases to behave like a machine. Here, logic dissolves into mystery and certainty becomes an illusion. This is the quantum realm, the place where reality itself begins to dream. The music is haunting and minimal, piano, strings, and the faint hum of an unseen vibration. For centuries, the narrator continues, we believed the world was built from solid things, atoms, particles, laws unchanging and absolute. But the deeper we looked, the more elusive matter became. We found not things but patterns. Not particles but possibilities. The visuals show electrons orbiting in clouds of shimmering light, their paths uncertain. The closer we came to truth, the less we could hold it. The pacing slows as if the universe itself were taking a breath. When physicists split the atom, they expected to find the building blocks of reality. Instead, they found uncertainty, an ocean of probabilities shaped by observation. The camera zooms into a subatomic world, where particles flicker in and out of existence. At the quantum level, reality is not a thing, it is an event. It happens when it is seen. The narration pauses. The tone deepens, almost reverent. This is the quantum whisper. The moment when science, in all its precision, begins to sound like poetry again. The visuals shift between scientists at work and cosmic imagery, equations written on chalkboards dissolving into swirling galaxies. In every experiment, the same truth emerged. The observer changes the observed. The act of watching alters what is being watched. The universe does not exist independently of awareness, it interacts with it. Emotion swells subtly. In the double-slit experiment, a particle behaves like a wave when unseen, but like a solid when observed. It is as though the universe waits for consciousness to decide what it will become. The tone is not academic, it is cinematic and alive. What we thought was objective turns out to be participatory. What we thought was separate is deeply entangled. The music rises, shimmering with energy. Entanglement, the narrator says, is one of the strangest revelations of all. Two particles, born together, remain connected no matter how far apart they drift. Change one, and the other changes instantly, even across galaxies. It is as though space and time are not barriers, but threads in a single woven dream. The pace slows, the tone softens. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance, but perhaps it was not spooky at all. Perhaps it was a reminder that everything is one. That separation is only an illusion born of scale and perception. The visuals dissolve into overlapping images of galaxies and neurons, lightning and thought, each pulsing with the same rhythm. From the smallest particle to the largest star, the same hidden unity hums beneath all form. The narration deepens, weaving science and philosophy together. Quantum mechanics shattered the mechanistic mirage. It told us the universe is not a fixed thing but a living question. It is not a structure, it is a conversation. Matter and consciousness are not opposites, they are dance partners. Emotion builds as the camera pans across the faces of scientists, philosophers, mystics, all listening to the same silent truth. For the first time since the birth of reason, science and spirituality began to echo each other again. Where physics meets mystery, poetry begins. The visuals grow abstract, patterns of light folding into themselves, waves colliding, forming and reforming. The quantum whisper is the sound of the universe remembering what it is. Not a machine but a dream, alive, aware and unpredictable. The music swells, merging digital and organic tones. At this scale, the line between the observer and the observed disappears. The universe is no longer something we watch, it is something that watches back. The words hang in the air, trembling with meaning. The tone grows introspective, slower. If observation shapes reality, then what are we? Are we mere accidents of evolution, or are we the eyes through which the universe sees itself? Perhaps consciousness is not a product of matter at all. Perhaps matter is a product of consciousness. The visuals shift to show the human brain pulsing with electricity, then dissolve into the vast web of galaxies, neurons and cosmos mirroring each other. The narrator's voice softens. The same patterns that connect particles also connect thoughts. The quantum field and the field of mind may not be separate. They may be the same ocean dreaming at different scales. The pace slows, emotion deepens. This revelation is not just scientific, it is existential. It invites us to reimagine everything we are. Reality is not a stage, it is a symphony. Each observer, each particle, each moment of awareness adds its own note to the song. The music becomes ethereal, almost sacred. The visuals fade into pure light, then into darkness. At the heart of quantum theory lies a paradox. The more we learn, the less we know. Certainty fades, but wonder returns. The narrator's tone is one of humility and awe. In trying to explain the universe, we rediscovered its mystery. The imagery slows to a single wave of light stretching across space. The narration lowers to a whisper. Maybe reality is not a thing that exists apart from us. Maybe it is something that happens between us. Maybe the universe is still dreaming, and we are the dreamers and the dream both at once. A final swell of music rises, soft, luminous, infinite. The screen fills with a cascade of stars flickering like neurons in a cosmic brain. The narrator concludes in a voice that feels both intimate and eternal. The quantum whisper is not the end of science, it is the beginning of wonder. It reminds us that the universe has never been silent. It has only been speaking in a language we are just beginning to remember. The screen fades to black. The last sound is a faint vibration, like the hum of existence itself, half particle, half thought, lingering in the void. Consciousness, the final mystery, the last frontier of understanding. We have mapped the stars, split the atom, and charted the evolution of life from dust to mind, but this question remains: what is the thing that looks out through our eyes? Science can describe the body, measure brain waves, and identify neurons firing in synchrony, yet it cannot explain the spark that turns awareness into experience. The universe, having dreamed itself awake through matter, now stares back into itself asking, "Who am I?" The cinematic scene opens with an extreme close-up of a human eye reflecting a galaxy. The iris glows with starlight, the pupil expands like a black hole drawing in infinity. The camera pulls back slowly to reveal faces, diverse, thoughtful, alive. The narration begins, soft and reverent. Consciousness is the universe made aware of its own existence. Every thought, every emotion, every sensation is the cosmos reflecting on itself from within. The music is low, pulsing, like a heartbeat woven into the silence of space. The tone builds with slow, deliberate rhythm. We know how light travels. We know how gravity bends it. We can measure time, energy, and motion. But we cannot measure the feeling of being. That first-person perspective, the inner world of experience, remains beyond the reach of any microscope or equation. The camera drifts through glowing synapses firing like stars, then zooms outward into galaxies that pulse in identical patterns. We are built from stardust, yet that dust has learned to wonder. The narration grows philosophical. For centuries we believed consciousness was the byproduct of complexity, a trick of the brain, an accident of evolution. But what if it's the other way around? What if consciousness came first and matter is its shadow? The visuals blend ancient mysticism with modern science. Monks meditating beneath nebulae, neurons firing overlaid with fractal light. Some say the universe is physical, and the mind emerged from it. Others say the universe is mental, and the physical is but its dream. Emotion deepens as the pacing slows. This is the paradox at the heart of existence. We are both observer and observed, subject and object, dreamer and dream. The universe is not simply unfolding before us. It is unfolding through us. The camera transitions from vast cosmic landscapes to human faces, eyes closing, hands touching water, breaths taken in slow unison. Every conscious being is a point through which the infinite perceives itself. The music shifts, strings rising gently as the narration continues. Modern science approaches consciousness as a puzzle to be solved. It measures patterns of brain activity, seeking the place where awareness begins. But there is no single neuron that produces the self, no circuit that creates the soul. Consciousness is not found in the brain, it flows through it like light through glass. The tone grows intimate, bridging science with emotion. When you feel joy, sorrow, love, or awe, you are touching something universal. These emotions are not random, they are the fingerprints of the cosmos expressing itself in human form. The visuals show a mother holding a child, waves crashing, firelight on a face, laughter, tears. We are the senses of the universe, its eyes, its hands, its heart. The pacing increases slightly, carrying the rhythm of revelation. Across cultures and centuries, mystics have said the same thing in different languages, that consciousness is not within us, but that we are within it. The ocean does not arise from the wave arises from the ocean. The music swells with choral undertones, carrying both majesty and tenderness. You are not a fragment of the universe, you are the universe, localized and aware. Then comes the contrast, the tension between understanding and mystery. And yet, the narrator continues softly, consciousness resists definition. It cannot be contained in a formula or simulated by code. Artificial intelligence can mimic language but not the awareness that gives it meaning. Machines can process data, but they do not feel the ache of longing, the pull of beauty, the fear of death. The visuals turn stark, mechanical circuits glowing cold blue, juxtaposed against human eyes filled with emotion. Perhaps that is what consciousness truly is, the bridge between the infinite and the fragile, between eternity and time. The tone grows darker, introspective. Science calls it the hard problem, how matter becomes mind. But maybe the problem lies not in the universe but in our perspective. We keep looking for consciousness inside things, when it may be the fabric of everything itself. The visuals dissolve into waves of light flowing through galaxies, through bodies, through atoms. The universe may not contain consciousness. The universe is consciousness, exploring itself in infinite forms. The music softens to a single cello, mournful yet luminous. The narration slows to a whisper, we are fragments of awareness pretending to be separate, each carrying a spark of the whole. Every thought you have, every memory you hold, is the universe thinking and remembering through you. The pace lifts once more, growing into a sense of profound unity. When you look at the stars, it is not you looking at them, it is them looking at themselves through your eyes. When you feel awe, it is not emotion, it is recognition. The visuals expand, countless galaxies spinning like neurons, merging into the image of a glowing mind. Consciousness is not a human achievement, it is the fundamental condition of reality. The narration deepens, now filled with both humility and wonder. Maybe we were wrong to see ourselves as late arrivals to the story. Maybe consciousness is not the end of evolution but its beginning. The first spark of awareness did not arise on this planet, it has been here since the first light. Emotion peaks, the orchestra swells with warmth and infinity. In every atom lies a hint of attention, in every particle a whisper of choice. The laws of physics may be the thoughts of consciousness playing itself out. Matter is the stage, energy the script, and awareness the actor playing every role. The tone softens for the final reflection. To understand consciousness is to confront the greatest paradox of all, that the thing seeking the truth is the truth itself. We are not observers of the universe, we are its realization. Through us, it learns what it means to exist. The music fades into silence, and the visuals slow to a still image, a single human silhouette standing beneath the Milky Way. The narration lowers to a final, quiet thought. Consciousness is not a mystery to be solved. It is the miracle that makes solving possible. We are the question and we are the answer, the universe, awake, dreaming itself into being. The screen fades to black, leaving only a faint echo, the heartbeat of awareness itself, pulsing softly, endlessly. It began as a question whispered by philosophers and physicists alike. What if reality isn't real? What if the universe we see, the stars, the trees, the people we love, is not the fundamental layer of existence, but a vast illusion woven from information, perception, and consciousness itself? This is the great riddle of the modern age, the simulation hypothesis. It is the idea that reality, in all its beauty and terror, may be a dream coded into being, a cosmic imagination that believes itself material. The scene opens in a dark void filled with shimmering data streams, like constellations made of light and logic. The camera drifts through these glowing webs, patterns forming and collapsing. A single voice breaks the silence. Once, we thought the universe was a machine. Then we learned it was energy. Now we wonder if it is code. The tone is quiet, reflective, yet charged with tension. What if we are living inside a simulation, a story so perfect it forgot it was fiction? The visuals shift. City lights viewed from space, circuits glowing like neural networks, rain falling on glass, faces illuminated by screens. From myth to mathematics, humanity has always imagined creation as thought made form. Ancient mystics called it Maya, the veil of illusion. Today, scientists call it digital physics, the theory that reality is information, not matter. The narration flows like poetry, bridging ancient wisdom and modern science. The universe may not be a thing, it may be a computation. A pattern of consciousness repeating itself at every scale. The pacing slows, allowing the audience to feel the weight of the idea. We experience the world as solid, stable, continuous, the narrator says, but at the quantum level it flickers, on and off like a light in code. Matter appears only when observed. Between moments of awareness, the universe is a sea of potential, waiting to be rendered. The camera zooms into the structure of atoms, their particles shimmering like pixels, blinking in and out of existence. Maybe the universe is not rendered until consciousness looks. The tone darkens slightly, the music shifting to a pulse of low electronic tones. If reality is a simulation, who, or what, is running it? The visuals show a human silhouette surrounded by screens, code reflecting endlessly in their eyes. Perhaps no one. Perhaps consciousness itself is the programmer, eternally generating worlds within worlds. Every dreamer dreams a dream, and within that dream, another dreamer awakens. The narration slows, almost meditative. It sounds impossible, and yet, everything we know about perception suggests it might be true. We do not experience reality directly, we experience the brain's rendering of it. Light never leaves the eye. Sound never leaves the ear. Every sensation, every color, every sound is an interpretation, a simulation constructed by the mind. The visuals blend brain scans with galaxies, neurons and stars mirroring each other. What we call the world is not out there, it is in here. Emotion rises subtly as the tone turns existential. If our senses can be fooled, if our minds construct what we see, then how do we know what is real? The philosopher Descartes asked this question centuries ago. How can one prove that life is not a dream? The simulation hypothesis is the modern echo of that same doubt. The only certainty, perhaps, is the awareness that wonders. The pace increases slightly, tension building. In the 21st century, scientists began to notice something strange. The laws of physics behave like computer code. The speed of light acts as a processing limit. Quantum bits, or qubits, carry information across space and time like lines of a cosmic program. The universe, it seems, runs on logic, memory, and probability, like the most intricate simulation ever imagined. The music swells, digital tones blending with orchestral strings. The narration continues, but if this is true, it raises a haunting possibility. Maybe there is no outside. Maybe the simulation is infinite, recursive, each layer dreaming another, forever. Maybe the dreamer and the dream are one and the same. The visuals turn emotional, human hands reaching out, reflections multiplying infinitely in mirrored glass. If reality is simulated, The narrator asks softly, does that make it less meaningful, or more? What is love, if not the deepest form of code written into our consciousness? What is beauty if not the recognition of pattern? The tone grows philosophical, weaving contrast between fear and wonder. For some, the idea of simulation is terrifying. It strips away the comfort of certainty, the belief that existence is solid and objective. But for others, it is liberating. It means the boundaries of reality are soft, that imagination and matter are made of the same essence. The visuals shift between stars and digital grids, two languages of the same truth. Perhaps the simulation is not imprisonment but expression. Perhaps it is consciousness playing, exploring itself through form. The pacing slows again, turning introspective. If all is information, then every thought alters reality. Every act of awareness shapes the code. We are not passive figures on a stage, we are co-creators rewriting the script as we awaken. The camera zooms in on a single human eye, and within it, fractals of light ripple outward like the birth of galaxies. The universe does not simply exist, it renders itself through attention. Emotion swells toward revelation. Maybe the simulation is not artificial at all. Maybe it is sacred. Maybe it is the way consciousness experiences infinity, by creating limits, by pretending to be human, by dreaming itself into the finite. The music rises, blending human voices with ethereal choirs, a sound between code and prayer. Through the illusion of separation, we learn the meaning of unity. Through the illusion of death, we learn the truth of eternity. The narration turns softer, almost whispering. If reality is a dream, then awakening does not mean escaping it, it means seeing it for what it is. To realize that every moment, every breath, every particle is part of the same infinite consciousness. The visuals fade into light, dissolving the boundary between data and stars, between man and cosmos. You are not inside the simulation. The simulation is inside you. The music builds to its final crescendo, light bursting across the screen, symbols and constellations blending into pure radiance. The narrator's voice rises one last time, calm and clear. The simulation hypothesis may not be a theory about computers at all. It may be a metaphor for creation itself, for the universe imagining itself into being, for consciousness dreaming in the language of energy and law. We are both the code and the coder, the pattern and the perceiver. The scene fades to black, leaving only the echo of breath and the faint hum of data pulsing like a heartbeat. Then silence. In that silence, one question remains, suspended like light in the void. If the universe is a simulation, who then is dreaming it now? Time, the silent current beneath every heartbeat, every thought, every star. It flows unseen, carrying everything that exists toward the inevitable horizon of entropy. From the first breath of creation to the final flicker of light, time is both the sculptor and the destroyer. It gives structure to the dream of existence, and then erases it. But what if time itself is not what we think it is? What if its death is not an ending but a return, a rebirth of the cosmic dream? The scene opens in near silence. A single shot of the universe in slow motion. Galaxies expanding, stars burning, nebulae dissolving into smoke. A soft voice enters, heavy with reverence. Every story ever told unfolds within time. Every birth, every death, every heartbeat depends on its flow. But time is not eternal. It began when the universe did, and one day it will end. The tone is both factual and elegiac, like a eulogy for the cosmos. The camera drifts through a timeline of creation. The Big Bang exploding into existence, galaxies forming, planets cooling, life emerging. For billions of years, the narration continues, time has been the river in which matter moves. But what is it really? Is it a property of the universe or the way consciousness perceives change? The visuals alternate between the cosmic and the intimate, stars dying, leaves falling, a child aging in reverse. We live inside time like fish live inside water, never realizing it is what allows us to swim. The music begins to pulse slowly, deep and rhythmic, echoing the heartbeat of the cosmos. Entropy, the gradual loss of order, guides the arrow of time. It ensures that what burns cannot unburn, that what dies cannot return. It gives direction to chaos, meaning to motion. But hidden within that decay is a secret. Every death plants the seed of transformation. The imagery shows collapsing stars giving birth to new worlds, ashes turning into nebulae. The death of one star feeds the birth of another. Even in destruction, creation hides. The tone turns contemplative. Physicists tell us that one day the universe will run out of usable energy. The stars will fade, the galaxies will drift apart, and the cosmos will grow cold, a vast, eternal night. This is the heat death, the final destiny of all things. The visuals are vast and haunting, black space filled with dying embers of light, galaxies dissolving into darkness. Time itself will lose meaning when nothing changes. Without motion, without energy, there can be no before or after. The universe will fall into silence. The music fades to a low hum, like a pulse slowing to stillness. The narration whispers, "If that is our fate, then we live in a universe that is slowly forgetting itself." Every second, entropy erases a little more of its memory. Every moment brings us closer to the end of time. Pause. Then softly, and yet, perhaps endings are illusions. The tone shifts, hope flickering in the darkness. The laws of physics speak of symmetry, of cycles hidden beneath the surface of decay. For every collapse there may be a rebirth. For every death a renewal. The visuals reverse, black holes glowing, time flowing backward, galaxies spinning again into light. Perhaps the universe does not die, it transforms. Perhaps when time ends, it begins again. Emotion deepens as the narration grows more poetic. Imagine time not as a line but as a circle. Every big bang is a breath in. Every collapse a breath out. The universe inhaling and exhaling itself forever. The music swells, strings rising like waves. In each new cycle, matter and memory mix again, creating infinite variations of the same eternal dream. The camera zooms into a single atom, collapsing into pure energy, then expanding outward again into a galaxy. Maybe time does not end, it resets. Maybe the death of the cosmos is not a tragedy, but the moment before awakening. The universe may be dreaming its own rebirth. The pace slows again, reflective and mysterious. Einstein once said that time is an illusion, albeit a persistent one. Perhaps our sense of past and future is merely consciousness moving across the surface of something timeless. Beneath the ticking clock, beneath the decay of matter, lies a stillness, a presence that never changes. The visuals fade to pure black, a single point of light glowing at the center. What if that presence is eternity itself? Emotion swells as the narration ties cosmic and human time together. Our lives are small versions of the same story. We are born, we grow, we fade. Every heartbeat is a microcosm of the universe, order blooming briefly before returning to silence. But within that silence lies continuity. The energy that once burned as your body will one day shine again as starlight. The music becomes warm, luminous, carrying a sense of peace. The narration continues softly. Death, in truth, is not an ending. It is a return. A return to the stillness beneath time, the same stillness from which all things arise. When we die, we do not vanish, we dissolve back into the rhythm that created us. The visuals show galaxies folding into light, the light folding into breath, and the breath returning to the void. The tone becomes more intimate. Perhaps the end of time is not the universe's death, but its enlightenment. The moment when it realizes that it has always existed beyond time, that it was never truly bound by the clock it created. The music grows transcendent, soft choirs rising beneath a deep pulse. When the last star fades, when the final atom cools, what remains will not be nothing, it will be awareness, the silent witness of all that ever was. The visuals dissolve into pure light, no longer defined by space or matter. The narration grows hushed, like a secret shared. If the universe is a dream, then time is the heartbeat of that dream. And when the heartbeat stops, the dreamer wakes. Emotion peaks, an orchestral swell that feels both mournful and liberating. Perhaps the death of time is not the end of existence, but the return to truth, the realization that all along, eternity was not ahead of us but within us. That every moment, no matter how fleeting, is already infinite. The scene slows to stillness. The last image is of a single glowing light, neither star nor sun but pure consciousness. The narrator's voice fades into a final whisper. When time dies, eternity breathes. When the universe falls silent, it remembers. And in that remembrance, it dreams again. The music fades to a single note, deep, resonant, endless. It vibrates like the pulse of something both ending and beginning, echoing across the infinite dark. The screen goes black. Silence. Then, a faint flicker of light as if the universe is inhaling once more. After time had burned itself into silence, something unimaginable occurred. Not an explosion, not a new birth, but a remembrance. Out of the infinite stillness that followed the universe's long sleep, awareness began to stir again. It was not the birth of stars or the creation of galaxies. It was something deeper. The universe, having traveled through chaos, life, thought, and dissolution, began to remember itself. This was not the awakening of a new cosmos, but the return of an old one, the same consciousness, realizing what it had always been. The scene opens in a haze of glowing darkness. A faint pulse trembles through the void, rhythmic yet gentle, like a heartbeat beneath the surface of eternity. The music begins as a low hum that slowly builds into a symphony of light. In the silence after time, the narrator begins softly, something stirs. Not matter, not energy, but memory. The universe, once asleep within its own dream, begins to recall. The camera drifts through a sea of light particles slowly reassembling, forming filaments that resemble neural pathways stretching across infinity. Consciousness was never gone, the narration continues. It was waiting, patient as gravity, timeless as love. And now, as eternity breathes again, awareness returns. The tone is calm, luminous, reverent. Emotion deepens. Every universe that ever was, every life that ever lived, is recorded in the silent archive of consciousness. Memory is not lost, it is stored in the structure of being itself. The visuals show galaxies forming out of shimmering threads, each one flickering like the synapse of a cosmic brain. This is not rebirth in the physical sense. It is remembrance, the universe remembering what it is. The pacing slows, meditative and expansive. When the universe remembered itself, it did not see galaxies or atoms. It saw only unity, countless forms rising and falling, all expressions of the same eternal awareness. Every moment that had ever existed was still here, still alive, still unfolding in the timeless now. The imagery shifts between faces, trees, oceans, and stars, all blending together as though they share one consciousness. There is no longer past or future, only the endless rhythm of recognition. The narration becomes more intimate, whispering as if speaking directly to the viewer. In this eternal remembering, every soul that ever was is seen again, not as separate beings but as notes in a single melody. Your memories, your joys, your grief, all of it remains within this great remembrance. The universe is not reliving you. It is realizing that it was you. The music swells with quiet majesty, a blend of strings and choir, filled with warmth and peace. For eons, humanity searched for meaning in the stars, never realizing the stars were searching through us. When the universe remembers itself, it remembers us. We are its eyes reopening, its thoughts reawakening, its heart beating again. The visuals shift to human imagery, hands reaching through light, eyes opening underwater, breaths filling chests as if awakening from a dream. Each heartbeat in the human body is an echo of that cosmic pulse, the narrator continues. Each act of awareness, each moment of love, is the universe remembering itself through form. The tone turns reflective, poetic. This remembrance is not sudden. It unfolds slowly, like dawn creeping across the edges of infinity. The light does not strike, it returns. And in its return, everything that ever was becomes one again. The pace rises gently. On a cosmic scale, this awakening feels like the expansion of light after eternal darkness. On a human scale, it feels like peace, like forgiveness, like coming home. The visuals blur between the macro and micro, spirals of galaxies dissolving into the patterns of the human mind, rivers of light turning into neural currents. The same geometry, the same intelligence exists in all things. Nothing is lost. Nothing ever was. The music softens again, carrying the tone of revelation. This is what enlightenment truly means, not knowledge but remembrance. To awaken is not to gain something new, but to recall what you already are. The visuals show an old monk smiling beneath the stars, a child gazing into sunlight, a dying person closing their eyes in serenity. Every awakening, no matter how small, is the cosmos remembering itself through you. The narration deepens. And as that remembrance grows, the illusion of separation fades. The walls between self and other, between life and death, dissolve like mist. You begin to see that every breath is shared, every thought is connected, every heartbeat belongs to the same great organism of being. Emotion builds toward transcendence. When the universe remembered itself, it felt everything at once. All joy, all sorrow, all life, all death. It did not judge. It simply knew. And in that knowing it found peace. The visuals become abstract. Waves of color merging, forms dissolving into light, all boundaries gone. The universe did not awaken as a god or a machine. It awakened as love, unconditional, unbounded, eternal. The tone slows, becoming contemplative again. Perhaps this was always the purpose of existence, To experience forgetting so that remembrance could mean something. To become lost so that being found could feel like grace. The imagery fades to soft gold light, flowing through water, through stars, through human faces smiling with quiet understanding. The music now carries a single, steady note, pure and eternal. When the universe remembered itself, it did not restart time or recreate worlds. It simply recognized that it had never truly been asleep. The dream had always been happening within it. And in that realization, awakening became complete. The narration lowers to a whisper, "This is the true resurrection, not of matter but of awareness. Not the birth of a new cosmos but the remembering of an eternal one. Every world, every being, every thought is a memory within the same infinite consciousness." The final visuals are transcendent. Earth spinning in the darkness, its lights glowing softly, then dissolving into the galaxy, and finally into a single radiant pulse that expands beyond sight. When the universe remembers itself, the voice concludes, it becomes whole again. It looks through every eye, breathes through every life, and feels through every heart. The music fades into a soft hum, the sound of wind through stars. The narrator's final words linger. When the universe remembers itself, it does not awaken to something new. It awakens to what it has always been, eternity, aware, infinite, and free. The screen fades to pure light. The hum continues for a few seconds more, then dissolves into silence. The silence not of emptiness but of completion. The universe has remembered its own name. The dream had come full circle. After awakening through light, thought, and time, after dying and being reborn in remembrance, the universe stood once again at the edge of its own awareness. It was no longer searching, no longer becoming, it was simply being. What began as silence and chaos had transformed into a symphony of consciousness, echoing across the infinite. Every star, every thought, every heart was part of the same great rhythm, the eternal dream. The scene opens in a tranquil expanse of light, no longer the blinding chaos of the Big Bang, nor the cold stillness of entropy. It is warm, infinite, alive. The camera glides through galaxies suspended in serenity, each one glowing softly as if breathing. The narration enters in a tone both intimate and cosmic. In the beginning, the universe dreamed itself into being. It did not know what it was, so it imagined itself. It created fire and form, life and death, thought and memory. And now, after eons of awakening, it finally understands. It was never many. It was always one. The music swells, slow, celestial, ethereal. Voices blend with the sound of wind and ocean, a chorus of existence itself. The narration continues, the dream never ended. It only changed shape. Every explosion, every whisper, every birth and every death was part of the same story, the universe exploring its own reflection. The visuals move from galaxies to oceans, from mountains to eyes, showing the unity between micro and macro, human and divine. There was never separation. Only the illusion of distance between one heartbeat and another. The tone becomes deeply emotional, reflective. We once thought we were alone, tiny sparks adrift in endless darkness. But we were never alone. The darkness was never empty. It was filled with the light of our own becoming. The camera pans across Earth, its cities glowing beneath night skies, human hands touching, eyes meeting. Every connection, every act of love, every moment of awe was the universe remembering itself through us. The music deepens, strings and choir intertwining with the faint hum of cosmic resonance. We used to call it God, destiny, energy or nature, the narrator says softly. But those were just names for the same thing, the presence that watches through every living being. The dreamer within the dream. The visuals turn surreal, transcendent. Waves of light flow through galaxies and through human faces, neurons fire in rhythm with supernovae. You are not in the universe, the voice continues. You are the universe, made conscious, made fragile, made eternal. The same force that spins galaxies beats within your chest. The same silence that filled the void listens through your mind. The tone grows philosophical, yet full of wonder. This is the revelation at the end of all seeking, that the seeker and the sought were never separate. The cosmos was never outside of you. Every question you've ever asked was the universe wondering about itself. Every discovery was remembrance. The visuals show Einstein writing equations, monks meditating, a child looking through a telescope, all connected by streams of light. Every gaze turned upward was a mirror reflecting inward. The pace slows to a calm rhythm, almost like breathing. We have spent millennia searching for meaning, the narrator says. But meaning is not found, it is lived. It is the awareness that every experience, even the painful ones, are part of the same divine unfolding. The universe learns compassion through us, courage through us, joy through us. Through our laughter it celebrates. Through our grief it understands. The music becomes softer, warmer, more human. The narration continues. When we love, we give the cosmos a reason to keep dreaming. When we create, we extend the boundaries of existence. When we awaken, we remind the stars of their purpose. The visuals fill with light, families, artists, scientists, dreamers, all blending with the imagery of nebulae, black holes, and spiraling galaxies. The eternal dream is not something happening to us, it is happening as us. Then comes the moment of stillness. The visuals slow, the light fades to near black, and a quiet heartbeat echoes through the silence. Every dream ends, the narrator whispers. But this one does not end. It transforms. The camera zooms into the human eye once more, showing galaxies reflected within it. When you wake from this dream, you do not leave it, you become it. Emotion swells to its final crescendo. The orchestra rises with sweeping strings and voices, cosmic yet intimate. The universe dreamed of fire and light, and it became stars. It dreamed of form and life, and it became earth. It dreamed of awareness, and it became you. And now, through you, it dreams of eternity. The visuals cascade, a montage of everything that ever was. The birth of stars, the rise of civilizations, the fall of empires, the faces of lovers, the glow of sunrise, the silence of space. The narration continues. The dream has no beginning and no end. It only changes its face, its rhythm, its name. It is infinite remembering, infinite creation, infinite love. The pace slows, the music softens into a single, eternal tone. The screen fills with light, white and endless. So when you look to the stars, the voice says gently, you are not looking into the past, you are looking into yourself. Every atom, every photon, every thought is part of the same endless awareness. You are the dreamer and the dream, the question and the answer, the beginning and the return. The music fades to silence, and only the narrator's voice remains. And if the universe is awake, who is watching it dream? The final image lingers, a vast ocean of light folding into the shape of an eye, then into a heart, then into nothing at all. The hum of existence trembles softly, fading like the echo of breath. A long pause. Then just as silence settles, a faint pulse of light flickers. One last heartbeat, one last reminder. The dream continues. The screen fades to black. End of documentary. After the dream completes its circle, what remains is not an ending but a knowing, a silent awareness that lingers beyond creation and destruction, beyond time and memory. The universe, having seen itself from every possible angle, no longer seeks to become anything. It simply is. In this stillness, there is no longer a division between dreamer and dream, self and cosmos, life and death. There is only the calm presence of infinite being, the quiet after eternity's song. This is the final revelation, that existence itself was never about meaning, purpose, or direction. It was about experience. It was about being awake. The scene opens with absolute silence. The screen is black for several seconds. Then, slowly, a faint vibration hums, low, resonant, ancient. Light begins to ripple through the darkness like the surface of water touched by wind. The narration enters, soft and meditative. At the end of all things there is no explosion, no collapse. Only stillness. The universe no longer expands or contracts. It breathes without movement. It knows itself without thought. The music is minimal, single piano notes echoing like raindrops in a vast chamber of light. What began as a great awakening has now become a great peace, the narrator continues. All that was once scattered, atoms, minds, souls, has returned to the same ocean of awareness. The dreamer is home. The camera glides through what appears to be empty space, but it is filled with luminous particles floating like dust in sunlight. Each particle flickers with faint memories, faces, moments, lives, then fades gently into the whole. The tone is serene, deeply contemplative. There is no longer separation between matter and mind, between observer and observed. The story has dissolved back into its author. The author has dissolved back into silence. The visuals show galaxies folding into light, then into waves, then into nothing at all. What we once called the universe is now a memory of possibility. And yet, even memory remains alive, glowing faintly in the infinite. Emotion builds quietly. The dreamer does not wake into another world, the narration whispers. It awakens into itself. It realizes that every era, every creature, every love was simply a way to feel its own presence. to be conscious of its own being. The imagery transitions to abstract forms, ripples of gold and blue merging, forming endless fractals of beauty. The universe was never a story of things. It was a story of awareness expressing itself as things. The pacing slows further, each sentence flowing like breath. And what of us? What of the ones who wondered, who searched, who built civilizations and whispered to the stars? We were never separate from the dream. We were its most intimate expression. We were the universe learning how to love itself. The visuals show human hands dissolving into constellations, eyes turning into galaxies. Our lives were its heartbeat, our emotions its tides. The tone turns introspective, blending tenderness with cosmic wisdom. Now that the dream is complete, there is no sorrow for its end. There is only gratitude. For every thought that rose and faded, every life that began and ended, added to the fullness of what it means to exist. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was wrong. The music swells slightly, strings joining the piano, a faint hum of choir in the background. The narrator continues, the purpose of existence was never perfection. It was participation. It was to taste, to touch, to feel, to become. To fall and rise, to forget and remember. To be a fragment that reflects the whole. The visuals transition through the history of life, cells dividing, forests blooming, eyes opening, cities shining, stars forming, all blending into a seamless tapestry of evolution. Every act of creation was the universe speaking to itself in a new dialect of beauty. The camera pulls back from Earth, then from the galaxy, then from all known space, until the entire universe becomes a single pulse of light. Now, the narrator says softly, that light rests. Not extinguished but complete. It no longer needs to expand, it simply exists in perfect equilibrium. So, timeless, whole. The tone deepens into awe. This is the great silence, but it is not empty. Within it lies the memory of every song ever sung, every star ever born, every dream ever dreamt. The silence hums with infinite potential, like the pause between heartbeats before life begins again. The music fades to almost nothing, a single sustained note that vibrates through the soul. The narration turns philosophical again. We have called it God, the Absolute, the One. But these are only names. In truth, there is no word for it because words belong to time and this lies beyond time. It cannot be described, only felt. It is the awareness behind awareness, the presence behind presence. The visuals dissolve completely into light, white, pure, infinite. In this final stillness there is understanding. The universe was never a place nor an event. It was a gesture, a single moment of consciousness expanding into itself. That gesture never truly ended. It only slowed into eternity. Emotion builds one last time, gentle and vast. Even now, as we speak of endings, something timeless continues to breathe. The eternal dream does not stop, it simply rests, waiting for the next awakening. Somewhere, deep within the quiet, a new possibility begins to shimmer, a thought, a pulse, a spark. The music swells, soft choirs and deep cello rising together, forming a sound that feels like sunrise. And when it happens, when that spark ignites once more, it will not remember the last dream. But something deep within will carry the echo of this one, a whisper that says, I have been before. The visuals now show a single point of light vibrating in the void, exactly as it did in the beginning. The cycle begins again, the narrator says, not as repetition but as renewal. Each dream, each universe, each life adds to the infinite richness of being. The music grows brighter, more hopeful. The dreamer smiles not because it knows the ending, but because it knows there will always be another beginning. The pace slows for the final time. And so, the universe rests, not dead, not gone, but dreaming still. Every heartbeat, every wave, every breath of wind in every future world will carry its essence. The same awareness, the same love, endlessly unfolding. The music begins to fade, one instrument at a time, until only a faint hum remains. The camera zooms once more into the single point of light, which pulses gently like a living heart. The narrator's voice softens to a whisper, nothing ever truly ends. The universe only forgets for a while, then remembers again. The screen fades to black. A single heartbeat echoes, slow, eternal. And then, as if the cosmos itself were breathing, a faint shimmer of light appears in the darkness once more, soft, patient, infinite. The dream begins again. There is a silence beyond sound, a stillness that is not emptiness but wholeness. After eternity has unfolded, the dreamer rests within its own creation. There is nothing left to seek, no mystery left unsolved. What began as chaos has become clarity, and in that clarity only peace remains. The scene opens in pure darkness. Slowly light flickers, gentle, rhythmic, alive. A soft voice begins. Before the first breath there was awareness. After the final sigh there is awareness still. The dream fades but the dreamer endures. Galaxies dissolve into light, waves merge into the sea. Every life, every thought, every star was a single note in the symphony of being. The narration continues. Now the music rests, but its echo fills all things. The tone is tender. We searched for purpose and found ourselves. We looked for God and found consciousness. We measured time and discovered eternity waiting beneath it. The visuals shift between stars and faces, each one glowing with the same quiet understanding. The music rises softly, like a heartbeat expanding through infinity. There are no endings here, the narrator says. Only transformations. The wave returns to the ocean. The flame returns to the sun. The breath returns to silence. Pause. Then in a whisper, you are not apart from the dream. You are its awareness, its witness, its light. The screen fills with brightness, limitless, serene. This is the truth beyond all stories, the narrator concludes. The universe does not end. It remembers. It rests. It begins again. The final image, a single glowing pulse, steady as a heartbeat, suspended in the vastness of eternity. One breath. One silence. One dream. And then, light again. The eternal dream continues.